Ever wonder what happens to your banana peel after you toss it into the compost bin? Like seriously, where does it go? Does it just sit there and rot forever? Spoiler, it doesn't. What really happens is way cooler than you think. That banana peel actually goes through a full-on transformation. We're talking about a total breakdown and rebuild. It turns into something called compost, often nicknamed black gold, because it's that valuable for the earth. And the best part? It's all powered by nature. No factory, no machines, no fancy tech, just a wild combo of science and time. In the next few minutes, we're pulling back the curtain on composting. Not just what it is, but why it works. Why that pile of scraps in your backyard or that countertop bin under your sink is doing way more than getting rid of leftovers. Composting is one of the most underrated environmental power moves you can make. And it's actually fascinating. Let's kick it off with a basic question. What is compost? Some people say it's just rotten stuff, but that's not really true. It's not garbage. Compost is the result of natural materials, like food scraps, dry leaves, grass clippings, and even newspaper, breaking down into a rich, earthy, soil-like substance. This new material is absolutely packed with nutrients. Plants love it. Soil drinks it up. Gardeners hoard it like treasure. But here's the catch. Compost doesn't just happen because you throw food in a pile. It takes the right ingredients and the right environment. Without the right mix, composting can go wrong fast. You could end up with a slimy, smelly mess instead of earthy, fluffy compost. The magic formula? You need 4 key things. 1. Greens. These are your nitrogen-rich materials like fruit scraps, veggie peels, coffee grounds, and grass clippings. 2. Browns. These are carbon-rich like dry leaves, cardboard, paper, or sawdust. 3. Water, not too wet, not too dry, just enough to keep everything moist. 4. Air. Yep, oxygen is critical. Microbes need it to do their thing. When these elements are in balance, composting works like a charm. What looks like a heap of trash is actually the start of a natural recycling process. And guess what? That process is alive. Inside your compost bin is an entire microscopic ecosystem. It's buzzing with bacteria, crawling with helpful bugs, and even steaming with heat from all the action. You might not see it, but it's happening every second. So the next time you finish your apple and think, it's just trash, remember, it's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of something bigger. Stick around because up next we're diving into the secret workforce behind compost, the microorganisms that power the whole operation. Trust me, you're gonna want to meet these guys. The first rule of Compost Club, you don't see the real heroes. Seriously, the powerhouses behind composting are invisible to the naked eye, but they're everywhere. Working 24/7, no breaks, no complaints, just relentless, nature-powered breakdown. Let's talk about the real MVPs, the decomposers. These are the bacteria, fungi, actinomycetes. Don't worry, we'll explain. And yes, even bugs like earthworms and beetles. They turn your kitchen scraps into nutrient-rich soil, like it's no big deal. But it's a big deal. First on the scene, bacteria. These tiny dudes are the first responders. They show up the moment you toss that apple core into the bin. If the conditions are right, warmth, moisture, and enough oxygen, they multiply like wild. They start breaking down all the easy stuff. Sugars, soft peels, juicy greens. It's like fast food for them. They eat, digest, and release heat as a byproduct. That's why an active compost pile actually feels warm, or even hot, in the middle. Next up, fungi. Fungi are the quieter workers. They don't move fast, but they're crucial. While bacteria break down the simple stuff, fungi handle the tough stuff, like cellulose and lignin. That's the fibrous part of leaves and stems. Fungi spread out in long threads and work slowly, but they get the job done. Without them, a lot of plant material would just sit around refusing to break down. Now here's a weird one you've probably never heard of, actinomycetes. They're like a cross between bacteria and fungi, and they're the reason finished compost smells so earthy. You know that fresh soil smell that makes you want to go plant something? That's actinomycetes doing their thing. They specialize in breaking down really woody, tough materials like paper, bark, and straw. Basically, they're compost deep cleaners. And we can't leave out the macro decomposers, the visible ones. These include earthworms, beetles, mites, and even millipedes. They don't just help, they're essential. They chew up large chunks, mix everything around, and create tunnels that help with airflow. Worms are especially important. As they eat and digest organic matter, they leave behind castings, basically worm poop, that are insanely rich in nutrients. If bacteria are the chefs, worms are the stirrers and finishers. What's wild is how organized it all is. These decomposers don't just work randomly, they function in layers. Some break down raw scraps, others feed on the waste of the first group, and others still finish what's left behind. It's like a relay race where the baton is compost. And as they work, they're constantly transforming materials on a microscopic level. Breaking bonds, releasing nutrients, forming humus. This humus isn't just dirt. It holds moisture, binds to minerals, and creates the perfect structure for growing plants. So yeah, your compost pile is basically a living city, full of workers doing their jobs without pay or praise. But you're the manager. Give them the right conditions, and they'll turn your trash into treasure like clockwork. Up next, how to keep this microscopic machine running smoothly. Let's talk heat, timing, and that sweet, sweet balance. So, we've met the team behind the scenes, the microbes, the worms, the fungi, all doing the dirty work. But what actually keeps them going? How do we keep that compost pile hot, active, and breaking down like a well-oiled machine? Let's talk heat, time, and balance, the holy trinity of composting. First up, heat. Ever stuck your hand into a compost pile in the middle of winter and felt it steaming? That's not magic, that's biology in action. When microbes like bacteria break down organic material, they release heat, a lot of it. If everything's working right, the center of a compost pile can get up to 130 degrees to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hotter than a jacuzzi. And here's the cool part, that heat isn't just some side effect, it's doing serious work. That high temperature speeds up decomposition, kills off weed seeds, and gets rid of harmful pathogens. You're basically pasteurizing your compost, and the microbes, they love it. As long as the pile stays warm, they keep working non-stop, tearing down every apple core, coffee filter, and wilted lettuce leaf you throw in. But compost doesn't stay hot forever, it has phases. At first, when you just start a pile, it's in the mesophilic phase. Not super hot yet, but warm enough for regular bacteria to get going. As they work and heat builds up, you move into the thermophilic phase, the really hot zone. This is when things decompose the fastest. Eventually, when the fast food runs out and the easy stuff is gone, the pile cools down into the maturation phase, where the tougher materials slowly break down and everything stabilizes. But all of this only works if your compost has the right balance. And here's where most people mess up. Composting isn't just tossing banana peels into a pile and hoping for the best. It's like baking bread or making soup. You need the right recipe. The two biggest ingredients, carbon and nitrogen. Carbon-rich materials, called browns, are things like dried leaves, paper, and cardboard. They give the microbes energy. Nitrogen-rich materials, called greens, are things like veggie scraps, coffee grounds, and fresh grass. They help with growth and protein building. The ideal mix, about 30 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen. It doesn't have to be exact, but if you go too heavy on greens, your pile will get wet, smelly, and maybe even slimy. Too many browns, and nothing will break down. It's like trying to make soup with no water. Then there's oxygen. Microbes breathe too, at least the good ones do. Without air, the wrong microbes take over, and that's when things get gross. So turning your pile every week or two keeps everything fluffy, oxygen-rich, and on track. And finally, moisture. Your compost should feel like a wrung-out sponge, moist but not dripping wet. Too dry, everything stalls. Too wet, it drowns the microbes. Get all of this right, and compost can be ready in as little as 2 to 3 months. Mess it up, and it could take a year, or never break down at all. So yeah, composting is a science. But once you've got the balance, time, and heat figured out, you're golden. Up next, why this all matters and how composting is way bigger than your backyard. Alright, we've talked about the science, the microbes, the heat, and the perfect balance to get compost cooking, but now, let's zoom out and ask the big question, why does composting really matter? Why should you care about what's happening in your backyard or kitchen bin beyond just making soil? Here's the deal. Most of the food waste we produce, think about all those fruit peels, coffee grounds, and veggie scraps, doesn't actually get composted. Nope, it ends up in a landfill. And that's a huge problem. Why? Because when organic waste is buried deep in a landfill, it doesn't get the oxygen it needs to break down properly. Instead, it decomposes anaerobically, without oxygen, and releases methane. a greenhouse gas that's about 25 times more powerful than carbon dioxide at trapping heat in our atmosphere. So every banana peel you throw in the trash could be fueling climate change. Composting changes that story completely. By letting organic waste break down oxygen, composting avoids methane production. Instead, it creates nutrient-rich material that feeds plants and helps soil thrive. And good soil is a game changer. Healthy soil packed with compost improves water retention, which means plants need less watering. It locks in carbon from the atmosphere, helping fight climate change by storing carbon underground instead of letting it float around as carbon dioxide. It also supports beneficial microbes and earthworms that keep soil full of life and nutrients. In other words, composting is like giving the earth a big boost, helping plants grow stronger and ecosystems stay balanced. Plus, it reduces landfill waste, cuts down on pollution, and helps communities manage trash better. And it's not just for gardeners or farmers anymore. Composting is becoming a huge movement worldwide. Cities are jumping on board with curbside compost pickup programs. Restaurants and businesses are recycling food waste. Even schools and offices are setting up compost bins to reduce their footprint. So what started as something small and simple, putting your coffee grounds or eggshells in a compost bin, is actually part of a massive global solution. The power of composting is in its simplicity and its impact. You don't need to be a scientist or own a farm. Anyone can compost anywhere. Backyard bins, community compost sites, even indoor worm bins for apartments. It all adds up. And the benefits? They're endless. You get less trash, richer soil, healthier plants, and you help protect the planet. It's like turning waste into a superpower. So the next time you're about to throw away that banana peel or those coffee grounds, think twice. Instead of trash, you're giving the earth fuel to grow food, clean the air, and fight climate change. Composting works because life wants to keep going. It wants to recycle, renew, and restore. And all we have to do is let it happen. Thanks for sticking with me. If you enjoyed this dive into compost science, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more cool videos. And hey, why not start your own compost journey today? The planet, and your garden, will thank you. See you next time.